Now, in a world in which corruption clouds public life, Nigeria's Code of Conduct Bureau, or CCB, is an investigating agency that has the constitutional mandate of ensuring that the behavior of public officers conforms to the highest standards of public morality and accountability. And of course, as the inauguration of a new crop of public officers draws near, this is a key moment when the CCB sets out as robustly as possible reminders of the procedures and the measures needed to uphold and strengthen standards of integrity and accountability, improve transparency and honesty, and tackle conflicts of interest. It's also a time to make sure that the incoming public officers understand clearly what the rules are on improper behavior. The Nigerian constitution mandates all public officers to declare their assets and liabilities on assumption of office and at the end of their tenure. And if, as a public officer, you fail to do this, you could be removed from your post, disqualified from holding public office, and forced to forfeit any property acquired fraudulently. So how is it that many Nigerians believe that their public officers easily manage to get around this and are able to pull the wool over the investigative eyes of the Code of Conduct Bureau? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau, Professor Isah Mohammed. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And we know that you play a very significant, visible, and also less visible role in Nigerian political and governance affairs. In other words, the conduct of government business. It is essentially your job to ensure that actions and behaviors of public officers conform to the highest standards of public morality and accountability. Help us expand on that a bit more.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come and showcase and also at least enlighten further the general public as well as the public officers in particular relating to the mandate of the Code of Conduct Bureau. The issue of ensuring good governance, accountability, transparency, and morality, this aside, but Code of Conduct Bureau primarily is an anti-corruption agency and enforcement agency. This issue of ensuring that the business and conduct of government is up to a moral standard is something else. When we're talking of law enforcement, we're not talking of morality. How this come into our objectives is something else maybe we'll discuss later.
Right.
But the issue now is that Code of Conduct Bureau, as an anti-corruption agency, has its mandate to enforce Code of Conduct for public officers. This Code of Conduct for public officers is enshrined under Part 1 of the 5th Schedule to the Constitution. And it is also from Section 5 to Section 19 of the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act. So this was extracted from the Constitution and also was put in the Act. The enforcement of this Code of Conduct for public officers is to be done against the public officers as listed under the 2nd Schedule of the Part 2 of the 5th Schedule of the Constitution. This Part 2 listed public officers who are subject to the enforcement of Code of Conduct for public officers. It begins with the president, vice president, governors, deputy governors, members of National Assembly, members of State House of Assembly. These are the crop of elected politicians that are now coming in.
Right.
By May 29th. Then others are ministers, SAs at national level and at state level. Then chairman of commission and all law enforcement agencies from the military, police, custom, immigration, and what have you, and also judicial officers. And also people, public officers in the service of local government councils. So nobody is spared in the country. And even the public officers or staff of public corporations, incorporated even under CAMO or whatever, insofar as that corporation is owned by the government. So nobody is spared.
Right. Well, it sounds like you've got your hands full there, but then it doesn't appear as though you have your hands full, because we're not hearing much from the Code of Conduct Bureau. I mean, with this wide remit, would expect there'd be people sort of being picked up every day.
Yes. The issue is that it's not that the Code of Conduct Bureau's presence is not felt, but what we do is not meant for the consumption of everybody. We do our work in confidence in such a way that we have limitations as to the publicity of what we do.
Yeah, but I would have thought that your job would be important to publicize as a deterrent, because it solves your problem. The aim of what you're trying to do is to ensure probity within the public service. And the more you promote it, the more people see clearly that they can't get away with things.
You are right. But we operate in accordance with the provisions of law.
And the law says you shouldn't be public.
The Constitution,
right.
CCB and T Act, in Freedom of Information Act itself. And these laws, they guide us as to the extent to which we can publicize.
Right. So it says you can't publicize. Is that what it says?
The law did not say directly we can't publicize. Let me give you an example. The Constitution said that we cannot make it public. As a declaration you submit as a public officer to the Code of Conduct Bureau, we cannot make it public.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
What I'm saying,
yeah.
let me learn, please.
Right.
What I'm saying, we cannot make it public unless under a guideline to be provided by the National Assembly. These guidelines are not in place right now as we're talking.
Right.
Now we have Freedom of Information Act. People come to us because they think that these are private documents in the custody of a public institution, and therefore they need access to them.
Right. Freedom of Information.
Freedom of Information Act gave a host of conditions for one to access private information,
right,
of individuals kept with the public institution. So these are some of the challenges and bottlenecks.
Yeah, I can understand that point
yes.
you're making, and I think you've made it quite clearly. But I mean, do you have lots of running battle royales with public officers, especially those who are on the higher levels, who may consider themselves to be immune or above the law? I mean, what sort of relationship do you have with senior public officers? The president, for example.
We have a very cordial relationship with all the public officers who comply with the law. We don't have any problem with them. You see, issue particularly, which is the lifeware, that is the issue of asset declaration. And that is the concern of most of the people, particularly the general public. It is not only the mandate of the Code of Conduct Bureau, there are other things which we also have mandate on them in relation to the buy. When I say CCPO, that is Code of Conduct for Public Officers, we have almost 14 codes we should enforce. Asset declaration is just one of them. So we're working on all these codes.
Yeah.
The issue of asset declaration, you find out that particularly the elected political office holders, they do comply. The problem is non-compliance most of the times when a public officer declines to comply. And this class of or category of public officers, you find them in most cases, about 99% of them do comply. The Constitution provides to the effect that you are not allowed to go into office, take the oath of office, or start discharging the functions of your office until and unless you declare your assets.
Right. So have you told the people who are coming in now that they must declare those assets before they're sworn in on the 29th of May.
You see, we have a tradition of communicating to the politicians.
Right, but you have communicated.
We have communicated in a
Right.
way. It is not that through the media we do that communication.
I understand that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we do, but the procedure is simple. We have state offices all over. And you know this is a very wide exercise. We have governors that are now governors-elects and governors that are returning for the second term.
Yeah.
So what we do it we do it through the directives we give to the state offices. And here at the national level also, we have our own means of communication. So we do it and we make sure that everybody gets the information.
Right. So when you check, when they submit those asset declaration forms, you obviously check to authenticate them, don't you? I mean, you don't just accept them and put them in a file. I mean, you go through it and ensure that what is actually being said there, you cross-check that with the facts on the ground.
Asset declaration is a process.
Right.
It's a process. So that process begins with the collection of form, filling of form, returning the form. Then by the time the public officer returns his form, we take steps further to verify what he has declared.
Right, okay.
That is technically we call, the law call it examination, but technically we call it verification. After that, we write a report and we archive it.
Right, and without mentioning any names, I mean, have you found instances where declarations don't match what your findings and your sort of clarifications?
We do find these instances.
And what do you do in those circumstances?
What the law requires us to do, you see, verification is just a stage. We have investigative powers. When you finish your verification, you put your report, the next thing is to commit, if there is any indictment, then you commit it to investigation. Investigation has its own procedure.
Right.
The investigation we do is not an investigation that we do and keep a report. No, it is an investigation we do and prosecute.
Right.
And that one is guided, technically guided by the law.
Right. Okay.
So,
and can you point to any instance where you've prevailed upon notable public officials?
I don't need to mention, but what the law told us that, what the law directs us to do, when we investigate and we find it pertinent to prosecute, then we file our charge to tribunal. You see, unlike maybe some other agencies where when you find somebody wanting, then you go and file a report somewhere. No. Our own, the moment we finish our investigation and the subject is indicted, the next thing is to file our charges to the tribunal.
Right. Well, I mean, the reason I ask you these questions is because the CCB has often been described by some people as a toothless bulldog, because you really can't discharge your statutory mandates effectively because your operations come under the presidency. I mean, you are an investigative agency that has the mandate of investigating public officers, including the conduct of the president of Nigeria. So it doesn't make sense, does it, for the CCB to be supervised by the same person who it is your responsibility to investigate?
Now tell me, in Nigeria, which institution, public institution, is not under the president?
Well,
tell me one.
Well, the point really is that I'm trying to make a point.
Yes,
what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't
right.
make any sense. People have said that you should, for instance, be under the judiciary, which is an independent, supposed to be an independent and different arm of government, because you have powers of, quasi-judicial functions.
CCB is a law enforcement agency. The judicial quasi-function is, the quasi-judicial function is vested in Code of Conduct Tribunal.
Right.
It is a different institution from Code of Conduct Bureau. Code of Conduct Bureau generate intelligence, generate information, then investigate at the end of the day, then it takes to CCT.
Yeah, but you still have to have a measure of independence to
excuse
do
me, that we have that independence, as
Right.
I'm telling you. The law that established, both the Constitution and the law that established the CCB did not put CCB under the supervision of the president.
Right.
It did not. There is nowhere in the law CCB has been put under the supervision of the president. And as you're seeing, we're operating a system. Judiciary itself cannot be exonerated. At the end of the day, NJC will make a recommendation for the president to approve for the appointment. It makes a recommendation, president appoint. So if you say that somebody cannot be able to discharge his function, or an institution cannot be able to discharge its function, simply the reason being simply that institution is under the presidency. I don't think it makes sense in a system like the Nigerian governance system as it operates today.
Okay, well, very briefly, what message do you have now for the new officers who are coming in?
The message is simple. And, you know, the issue is that the law is very clear. If you don't know maybe CCB and T Act, you know the Constitution. And the Constitution makes provisions to the effect that it is an obligation of on every public officer to declare his assets. There are those that are allowed to declare their assets after they have entered their office, after they assume office. There are those that must declare before they assume office.
And who are those?
These are president, vice president, members of National Assembly, ministers, and special assistants to the president.
So that's before they assume office.
This is at the national level.
Right.
At subnational level, we have similar or a replica of this crop of officers, public officers. So these are the people that are required before they start discharging the function of their office or taking the oath of office. They are required by Constitution to fill in their asset declaration.
And if they don't?
If they don't, we wait to see. But I
thought you say you'd
yes,
prevent them from being sworn in.
We can't just preempt.
Right.
Yes, if they don't, the law provides what to be done.
And what does the law provide?
The law provides for taking the necessary process or procedures, commit investigation, and then take to the tribunal.
Okay, well, it's been very, very educational talking to you. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know that much about the Code of Conduct Bureau, so it's been really good to have you come in and explain it to us. Professor Isah Mohammed is the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You're most welcome.